Good evening. My name is Craig Wong. I'm your host for Craig's Terrible Idea. And with me tonight are my co-hosts Don Pickett and Eric Lehman. Today, I would like to talk about our last texted conversation, all about our favorite subject, incels, and why they suck.
First, I think we need to take a vote on who's the host, because I don't remember voting you host.
I don't recall that vote either.
I don't recall that either.
Yeah, well, when your name is in the podcast title, then you can come and bitch to me. But until then,
All right, Eric.
We'll let you sit in that seat.
What are you, an incel? Oh my god.
No, this is pure democracy. There's three of us, so
And already, folks, you've gone off subject. So
already.
Yep.
But I think that Eric, we can agree that I think we'll allow Craig to be provisional host, maybe.
Provisional. I can get down with that. Yep.
Okay, provisional host. All right. Until we have the first meeting of the plan. Now, so yeah. Well, so the way that came up is that Eric texted me something from the Washington Post about, was it like number of young men who said they haven't had sex yet?
It was. Let me open it up exactly. So I think it's males.
I think you should be able to share your screen.
Oh, it's on my phone.
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, we can.
Okay, never mind. Don't worry.
It's a graph, so I don't think
Yeah, it's just a graph. Basically, the important takeaway is this is males, 18 to 30, who report 0 female sex partners since they turned 18. So this is young men, and in 2008, the percent of men that reported that was 8%. And prior to 2008, that stat seems to have wavered right around there. It goes up a bit and comes back down and around 8%. But capping it like maybe 15, 17%.
Yeah,
whereas in 2018, males aged 18 to 30 report 27% of them, according to this study, reported 0 sexual partners since they turned 18. So that's a lot more than previously.
Yeah.
And one thing me and Don have talked about is like it's hard to feel bad for them. Well, Don came with, it's hard to feel bad for these dudes when all they have to do is kind of treat women better. And I absolutely agree.
Do you think that's the case? I mean, do you think
I think that is the case.
The reason why they're not with women is because they have a bad relationship, or they don't know the proper etiquette, or they just have bad manners.
I would.
Go ahead, Eric. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I would say women over the past several decades and more have been kind of climbing to more and more of an equal status in our society. They're not there yet, but they're getting more and more equal as time goes by. And there's a lot of men that are not moving along with it. And so their behavior isn't changing to acknowledge the new position that females find themselves in. And so these men that don't move forward are having a harder time finding female partners.
So they're stuck in the past. They're not able to process the progressiveness of how women are.
Right. But the way that's turning is that those males are finding this to be feminism's fault. Right. So they think feminism is wrong. And so as a result, like they're instead of going with the punches and moving along with it, they are rebelling against it. And so I think, that comes off, if you're trying to woo a girl who's not down with chauvinistic behavior, you can do it till you're blue in the face, and it's not going to happen, and I think that's the position these guys find themselves in. But how do you convince, and the reality is, if they chilled out and got on board, they would get the pussy. But since they're not doing that, they just, how do you get them to realize that? How do you get them to cross that divide? And right now, I'm not entirely sure how.
What were we going to say, Don? I'm sorry.
I think Eric's got a definite point, is that, society is changing, hopefully for the better, but, the Me Too movement, ERA, everything that's come towards it has changed the way the dynamics that can happen between men and women. Obviously we're talking about heterosexual relationships right now, because that's what incels are all about. And the thing I was thinking about actually is, like, no one's born an incel. You don't pop out of the womb hating women so much that you're willing to kill them. So that has to happen somehow. And I think, this is just off the top of my head in my, my college level Psych 101 training, which is of course, I mean, I think I would think it would be like, the environment you're raised in. Like, were you raised in an environment where like your parents are actually partners, or were you raised in an environment where the men around you were resentful, or they expected stuff from their women, or were you raised around like maybe your mom was very subservient, or whatever. But then something has to happen to weaponize that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a gulf between having a resentment and murdering someone, and it's a big gulf. So in terms of fixing that, I mean, to me, that kind of shit, like, you need fucking therapy, or you need like something to deprogram those beliefs. Because if those beliefs are based on resentments, even if, let's say, there's a justified, let's say you grew up with the world's shittiest mom, whatever, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. You grew up with, terrible mother. Like, even if it's a justified resentment, it's like for your own health, you need to address that through whatever method. But unfortunately, and Aaron, we've talked about this way back when we were working together, about like right wingers targeting these guys, and Nazis targeting these guys, and like using the hook of that resentment to like draw them further in. And Eric, I don't know how you undo that. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, that's the interesting thing is like, look, we're gamers here, right? And so one danger of being a gamer is believing that the gaming community is responsible for a hell of a lot more than it is. However, that said, within our community, I feel like we can look at the gaming community over the past, what is it now, 6 years, 5 years or so, as a microcosm of at least what's happening in online culture, right? Like, where we had this community, mostly males, who the medium that we were playing with, that we care very much about, was like kind of the last medium to start getting woke. So it was the last one to have strong female protagonists, the last one to have black protagonists, whatever it is. Most of our games, it was some big strapping white dude murdering everybody else. And that was the gaming world, But watching the gaming, like, you could see it in our community back, 2014, 2015, like with the, what was that Gamergate, that whole thing, you know what I mean? Like, where it's like the rebellion to the female encroaching, or the changing of the tone. Like, these are the guys, like, you could just see how they felt the world changing without them, and the way they like lashed out, you know what I mean? And there's arguments to be made that they helped make Trump possible. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, like, this stuff is deep.
Well, it depends on it. To me, since I've been gaming, right? Since I've been online gaming, since I've gotten my PS3, from those days on, everybody that I've gamed with, I haven't really experienced that type of resentment towards women. Like, almost everybody that I have ever gamed with, they're pretty respectful, and they're all different ages, all the way from kid at age of 12 to I was basically the oldest guy there, and.
But wait, this is a curated group? Like, these are friends?
I mean,
that's
different.
I mean,
these
like,
are friends.
I'm kind of talking about like as a whole. You know what I mean? Like, so like when me and my friends played together, there were constantly other people in there that were monsters. You know what I mean? Like, we were our own form of monster, but
right. And they were saying like, you heard all the randoms talking about their own crap. They would say, they would say the stupidest things. I don't know if they just said it to rile other people up to come after them, and then they can, they could ambush them, or other words, or basically they were, they were basically, they can be themselves in this world with no repercussions because no one knew who they were, and they can say all sorts of dark hate that they've been holding within themselves, and then when they finish the video games and they go back to the other life, they have to do that switch. And I read Gamergate, and it's basically a bunch of developers who were doxing this one female developer, and I couldn't. To me myself, I didn't understand why. Like, if anything, you should be happy that more people are being inclusive, into the video game world and making it better. But um, these type of males that I have not run across these type of guys. I've heard the stupid shit on the other end. I've never, but then again, I don't associate myself with those people either,
Yeah,
so I couldn't.
I'm gonna pat us on the back a little bit and say, I don't think any of us are gonna hang with, incels or the guys who
Neo-Nazis, white supremacists.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, we may talk about them, but personally, I have zero Nazi friends.
I got a couple. I got two. I got two guys that I know are avowed white supremacists. But the funny part is that when we talk, I let them know who I am. Like, that I'm Asian, right? That I live in New York City. That I vote Democratic and I lean left and I'm Bernie Sanders guy, et cetera, et cetera. And then, there's hesitation when we talk, but then the more that we interact and treat each other as people, they're still people, and like they still have their prejudices, and they still say, well, you're not in my position, or I was a prison guard, and you don't know the type of people that I have to be with, or like I'm a sanitation guy, and like I deal with all sorts of garbage type people all day, and it doesn't matter what they say, the stereotypes are true. It's basically their perception of what goes on in life is what happens to them, and that's what they assume all of life is. And I guess that's what the incels basically believe. Like, let me give you an example for myself. Like, when I was in 5th or 6th grade, I had a crush on this one girl, and like I had a hard crush. I bought her like the costume jewelry, and I made a card and all that. Aww. I talked to her friends, and she just rejected me like that. Oof. Right? She says she gave the stuff back because I'm not interested, and like that was a crushing defeat. I mean, like I was like crushed, and I felt embarrassed going to school, going to class, and there was a little bit of resentment. There was some resentment in there.
You didn't then go shopping for an AK? I'm sorry.
Yeah, but the thing on my mind was I wasn't going. This is the 1970s. I'm not gonna go and like hold the resentment and get her when I get older, or like take it into my own hands and like do something to bash her in front of a friend.
But I mean, this is what I said. Like, you're despite your facade of grumpiness, the official Craig Grumpy, you're actually you're actually a good person.
I couldn't
exactly. Yeah. Once again, I've seen you literally stop to walk a guy across the street. Eric and I breezed past because we were hungry.
Yeah.
We were like, Craig, hurry the fuck up. We're hungry. You're like,
and look at us compared to you, Craig. Like, I can only imagine how hungry you were.
But you also have to understand, right? You have to understand it's also peer pressure too. Like, you can't look like you're not one of the group. You want to stay within your clique. You want to stay within your guys or play with your guys. You gotta act like it. So some of these guys, I don't know. I mean, like, I have another friend who basically hates all women. He's been on tons of dates, and every time, girls reject him. And like, I ask him like, what happened? And he's like, oh, well, I tried to be this way, and she couldn't accept it, and I didn't want to deal with somebody like that. So it's self-denial. It's like, you can't believe something about yourself that you want to change. I mean, like, you're so hard up that you're on the right end of things. You're never going to, you're never going to change. And like, that's one thing I think people have to accept. You can't change the way a person wants to be. They have to do it themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
So if these incels are going to be mad and they're going to take it out on women, you have to find out, the environment they grew up in, find out why were they like that. Maybe give them, like, if I introduce you to a group of women who are willing to listen to you and, like, hear you out, would you be open to that? And there are women out there who want to try that, but if they're not going to do it,
it would take more than that, though. I mean, like, if these people, like, if you take someone whose hatred of women is so intense that they're willing to kill or hurt women,
black pill.
It's going to take more than a focus group. Like I said, it's going to take like some serious fucking therapy and like an intense desire in their part. But before I forget, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about fitting into your clique. That was something I was thinking earlier, is I think part of the problem, like, toxic masculinity, which is thrown around a lot. But I think one of the problems with the way masculinity can be presented in the US is that a lot of the bonding rituals can be based on violence, meanness,
look at the college fraternity.
Not having feelings, all that shit. And I think part of it, I mean, well, you know, when I look at like the kids behind us, especially when I look at like kids who are like, you know, in their like, you know, late teens or early 20s, one of the things that makes me hopeful is I see a lot of you know, men or people identify as men or whatever, who are much more willing to talk about their feelings, be vulnerable, cry. And even when I grew up, I mean, you know, I'm 50 now, so I'm officially old, but I mean, I remember growing up in like the 70s and the 80s. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, boys didn't cry, you know?
Not in front of other people.
Well,
No,
I mean,
exactly. Boys didn't cry. Like,
I
we
mean,
didn't cry.
like I'm 5 years younger than you.
Yeah.
And so the 80s was my, elementary and junior high school years. And the word faggot was a threat.
Oh,
Like that
God,
was
yeah.
a label you did not want.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, now nobody's allowed to say it, but I imagine there's still some vestiges of like manliness that men feel they need to carry and present, for fear of being ridiculed by other men, really.
Well,
You know?
when I was reading exit poll stuff from the last election, looking at who voted Republican, like there was a chunk of young white people who actually, like in the majority of young people across all genders, ethnicities, everything, voted for Democrats. But there's a chunk of young white people who voted for Trump, specifically a chunk of white men. You know, these are, and you know, anywhere between 18, 24, 25, 26, wherever the cutoff was.
Yeah.
But I will make you a bet, like if you looked at their socialization and if you looked at their rituals, boys don't cry, girls do what you tell them to do.
That's the Proud Boys, dude. That's the basic, the whole.
No, but I don't even mean the Proud Boys. The Proud Boys are like, 0.000, the Proud Boys are a rounding error in the overall population of the US. And they're all getting fucking arrested right now. But like, I'll make you a bet there's a tie there. It's like, if you have some young kid who won't be vulnerable, who the only way that he can connect to other people is through some sort of display of dominance or strength or whatever. It's like, you're not talking about someone who's well-rounded or who's really built to handle life's vicissitudes.
I mean, and I'll tell you, like, all right, so it's the reasons I argue, the direction I argue from, and the solutions I come to, like both of those things always end up being like, so what that says to me is like, again, it's someone acting out of fear. You know what I mean? They're afraid of something.
Yeah, I'll agree.
Would be my opinion. You know what I mean? Like the world isn't as dangerous as they think it is, but that doesn't matter when you're inside their head. You know what I mean? From the position where they feel they feel a fear, and that's what they're reacting to. And so that, like, again, like, and so my axiom is that humans are in general good, and we need to do our best to find a way to make them behave that way. You know what I mean? Like,
until they're not good.
And again, if they're not, it comes down to some form of fear or something they feel they lack, or some hole.
Man, there's you with your hope for humanity again.
No, for real. Like, and that's the thing is, like, in all of these discussions we have, I always find myself coming to the same place. It's like the best I can come up with is just do what we consider the best thing to make everyone's lives better and hope for the best. And like with this one, that black-pilled incel, we're probably not going to fix them, but maybe we'll create less next time. You know what I mean? Like the kids that are coming up after, if we're the intersectional feminism message is coming out better, like if everyone's making a little more money, if they don't have to worry about as many things, maybe slowly but surely less of our kids will come out as incels. You know what I mean? Like, and they'll be a little more open to the good path. I don't know. I mean, that's honestly, no matter what issue we're talking about, that's where I end up.
The good side of the force?
Right.
Basically.
But incel or otherwise, right? I think most of these people that got sucked into the QAnon alt-right wing bullshit is, they've been looking for a group to fit in. They've always been ridiculed for thinking a certain way, and these guys are going to say,
feel
hey,
their white power being taken away, and they
walk white power being taken away.
But again, that's the same. It's the same thing,
But these guys are. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Craig, I'll disagree with you about QAnon because just from the shit I've read about QAnon and the people I've seen, QAnon to me is white people who've never been told no, and they're not going to start being told no now.
So here's my terrible idea. My terrible idea.
Yeah,
is,
we're living it.
You're living it. You basically living it, right? My terrible idea is anybody who participated in this Capitol riot, they need to be punished to the fullest extent. And that will give, a basic warning sign that, we tried it your way. You had 4 years to make it work, and obviously it didn't. You were in the majority, and it still didn't work. And now you tried to overthrow the government, and that didn't work, right? And then you floated all these ideas that there would be some big uprising, and no one showed up to your party. So, you make an example of these people, and
so you think the stick will work? Like, I think the carrot will work.
I think the stick.
Honestly, I think it needs to be a combo of both. It needs to be the stick and the carrot.
It's got to be a combo of both. Like, I agree with you, Craig. I agree with you. Like, people who, like, all the Proud Boys who've been arrested, all the people who film themselves on Facebook beating a cop,
they get the stick.
All those people should and hopefully will go to jail, and hopefully it'll be federal prison, none of this local jail shit.
Right. Well, it is federal.
But I don't think that is enough to disarm the resentment that comes from losing your white privilege.
Right.
And the thing about, and this is not an original thought on my part, like a lot of smarter people than me have said this, but the thing about privilege is when you lose privilege, even though it means you're just treated the same as everyone else, it feels like an attack.
Yeah.
Like, if you're like, I mean, that's the thing about being white in the US. It's like, I've never been arrested for driving while black. I've never been followed around store by security. Unlike you, Craig, I don't have to worry about people seeing me in the train and going all Trump in my ass.
Right.
Like, there's white privilege stuff for me that I like haven't, spent most of my life not even thinking about because it was my life. But let's say I'm like one step more of a bad person, and I'm, if I apply for a job, of course I'm going to get it rather than the Asian dude or the black dude or the Hispanic woman. So if I'm that person and I don't get the job, but Craig Wong does, then I'm attacked. It was an affirmative action hire. You know what I'm saying? Even though you're more qualified than I am.
Well, that's the excuse you want to give yourself, because you can't accept the fact that, you haven't moved forward during the times. You haven't acclimated yourself. You still think that it's a status quo of the 1950s and all that. Yeah, I totally understand that.
The stick's not going to work with that.
The stick. So here's the thing, like there's today they had all these anti-Asian protests. There was one down in Columbus Park. There's another one in Elmhurst Park over here. And that's great. I see all my friends on Facebook to put, stop Asian hate and all that other crap. You know what that's going to do? Absolutely zero, because everybody's still going to do it. And the reason why they're going to still get away with it is because they look at Asian people. I can smack you in the face. I can kick you down the stairs. You may call the cops on me, but I know you won't retaliate. The one shining example of this entire thing, there was an 87-year-old woman in San Francisco.
I saw that.
2x4 and fucking beat the snot out of a 39-year-old white guy who had before hit another 87-year-old Asian man, right? And thought he could get away with it. Today there was another attack. Some guy just pounded on an Asian guy, and they're yelling at Chinese, Asian this, Chinese that, and when he was confronted, he ran away, right? So basically, all these people, they view us as an easy target, but when someone like white like you or somebody decides to step in, all of a sudden these guys realize, oh shit, someone's standing up, and they're gonna bail. So basically, your entire premise of like Asian people caused all this, how come you're not coming to my side and you're coming against me, and now they're running away? Well, the same thing goes for all the people who are arguing for white privilege. Like, they'll pick an easy target, and when the shit really hits the fan, they're gonna bail. They're a bunch of cowards. To me, the way that Asian hate stops is that old lady with a 2x4. One of these days, these guys are gonna fuck around with some guy who's not gonna take a punch to the face, who's actually going to push back or do something even worse to the assailant, right? And then we'll see what happens then. If it happens more often, where an Asian person starts to fight back, well,
it sounds like you're arguing for some more defensive solidarity, and I can't deny that.
I want to defensive solidarity because, let's take for example the Not Fucking Around Coalition, right? So I did a little research. You have to be African American to join the Not Fucking Around Coalition, which I think sucks because I wanted to join the Not Fucking Around Coalition, but couldn't do it because I'm not black. Plus, I don't own a gun, but hopefully that will change soon.
Thank God.
Right? So
Yeah, that mental health questionnaire is tough, right?
Yeah, you never would have had that. Wait, do you need references to get a gun? Because we'll be your references.
Oh yeah, you'll give a shining example.
No, I'll tell them about your endless fantasies about murdering the president.
So,
they'll be totally fine with that.
Any fucking way, these guys last year showed up to a bunch of events where they showed up to Stone Mountain where they had that,
one of the big because there's a huge fucking carving
mural of fucking Jackson
of Lee, the side of Stone Mountain,
right?
Yeah.
And they said that the right wingers were going to be there, the Second Amendmenters, the militias, they're all going to be there to protest that you can't destroy our heritage. And the NFAC showed up and he said, "Where are you boys?" And they never showed up, ever. And you would have been on the same ground. Like there are a couple hundred of them. You guys could have showed up with a couple hundred of you. Everybody has guns. It's all open carry. See what happens. And these guys did not step up. And because you took the stick out and you threatened to use it, these guys didn't show up. Right. So I'm not saying Asians in general have to stand up and start fighting for themselves. I mean, a lot of them are, pretty rational minded. They don't want any trouble. They want the typical way of most older generation Asian cultures. Like, I don't want to get involved in confrontation because I don't want to show people that I'm weak minded, because that's the biggest thing is about saving face. I want to show people that I'm a mature adult, and they would rather, take the abuse and hopefully it goes away. And unfortunately, because of the American culture, it just eggs people on to keep going. So the stick, in my opinion, and this has happened to me too. Like, I got picked on when I was younger, and
that's what I was gonna say. Like, it's like different approaches to a bully. Like that's really what we're kind of talking about here.
Dude, they threw eggs at me at Halloween. They came to my house and they threw toilet paper, whipped, shaving cream. They called me and my mom out. They chased me and my brother down the street.
Was it specifically anti-Asian, or was it just?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's a Chinese kid in a fucking Jewish neighborhood.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't know.
Yeah, I grew up in Forest Hills. I was like one of Asian kids.
Like our bourbon drinking Asian friend that used to sit with us. Asian kid in a Jewish neighborhood. I believe that kid had a hard time.
Was that his story too?
Maybe he did have a hard time.
The dude that sat in your seat, Don?
Yes.
He grew up in Midwood. He grew up in Midwood. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what's going on there now, but when he was there, he would have been alone. So I can imagine that, I mean, it makes you come out a certain way.
Yeah, no one stood up for me. And when I went to the teachers, they said, "Man up." They brought my parents in. The other parents, the Jewish parents, brought my parents in. They complained about me because I was the one harassing their kids. I'm like, what are you?
Now I'll tell you something. All right. So, I grew up in the suburbs, and I was a Jewish kid, went to Hebrew school. And the other Jewish kids, I think, were a little more wealthy than I was. Like, I was solidly middle class, but these guys were a little higher. And they got a little cliquey. And these motherfuckers were bullies. You know what I mean? Like, but Jewish parents have a hard time believing that their good Jewish boy could be a bully. Like, it's a bit of a funny thing. Like, I feel like Jews have a hard time recognizing that behavior within their own selves.
And I don't even know if it's strictly a Jewish thing. I think parents in general have a hard time believing that they're angel. I remember, when I where I went to high school in this really rich town in Connecticut, like super rich, really, you could get any drug you wanted anytime, blah, 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 blah. And one of the biggest dealers in town lived at the top of our street. And I remember when I was in high school, I remember my mom was going on about him. At one point I was in high school and I said, "Mom, you know what he fucking does, right?" I said, "He's the local coke and acid dealer." And she's like, "Oh, no.
Ain't nothing and I remember wrong with dealing acid.
What?
Ain't nothing wrong with dealing acid. Be quiet. Dealing acid is okay.
Well, but that was his thing. He dealt coke and acid, and
the coke is a problem. The coke starts to become a problem.
A long time ago.
All right.
But anyway, I remember, years later, maybe I was in college, maybe a little after, I was talking to my mom, and I think he'd gotten busted. And I was like, "I remember you telling me about him, but I just didn't want to believe you." I'm like, I had no reason to lie to you. I didn't dislike the kid, but I just thought,
it's not even your kid.
It's not some fucking angel. It's like, a friend of mine broke into his car and stole all his coke once, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah, it's funny. So I remember one of these situations in Hebrew school where the crew of them in the back were messing with me. And, I'm a very specific character. Like, I will take a certain amount of shit and then you're getting it all back in one solid blow. And a situation like that happened. And, and I forget exactly how it went down, but like, basically one of them was saying, it's like, yeah, he keeps messing with all of us, picking on all of you. And that was like, that is such a weak argument. Like, there's no way that one lone dude is starting shit with the whole batch of you. That's not dynamics. And thankfully, like, the teacher had enough of like a head on her shoulders to be like, okay, come on. You know what I mean? He's messing with all of you. Like, I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. But yeah, like, I don't know, like, you look at these clean cut Jewish boys, they were neater and tidier than I was. You know what I mean? Like, and
all right. Well, to go back to your example, it's gang mentality. It's all against you, and we're gonna make it. It's always gonna be right in our eyes because we have more people who are right, and it's only you. Second thing of all, going back to the stick thing. So I got picked on all the way up until 8th grade. There's this one Jewish Italian kid who just kept fucking with me. And one day, my friend, I was in a pool hall. He took a cue stick, he grinded it in my head, and would kick your ass tomorrow. The guys that I hung out with, all the heavy metal guys, right? They said, we'll back you up tomorrow because they didn't like him. We'll back you up tomorrow. You take care of him. Don't worry, we got your back. So the next day, all this pent up, years and years and years of pent up aggression comes up. What are you gonna do now? And I just fucked him up. I put him in the hospital. And ever since from that day forward, I developed this attitude where the stick works better than the carrot, because the stick, you're never gonna forget it. But yes, the carrot will work if you talk to rational people, but these people only understand violence and they only understand the stick. So that's all they're ever gonna respond to is the stick. It doesn't matter if you dangle the carrot in front of them.
I'm not going to criticize you for any of that, because like, the thing is like, in my personal relationships, I try to come at people with openness and respect. But if they don't show it, if I'm not receiving it, they're going to get garbage out of me. Like, and that's it. Like, I'm not going to try to butter them up, and buy them presents. That's not my way. You're going to get what I expect back, which is just mutual respect. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, like, I don't go carrot in my individual relationships. You know what I mean? Like, I go mutual respect, and try to find our best way forward together, or I'm just going to remove you from the universe. Like, that's just the way it works for me. Like, you're either in or you're out.
Well, one thing I think, I kind of agree with you, Craig, about all of the anti-Asian violence protests not having much effect.
Yeah, look at BLM.
But I do think they are important for one reason. Is like, one of the reasons that anti-Asian violence is so high right now is we had 4 years of Trump and Stephen Miller and all those assholes, China, all that shit.
Yeah.
So the official, the official public and the atmosphere purposefully created by officials and public officials is important. It's not going to
scapegoat du jour.
Yeah, it's not going to solve problems, but the fact that Biden came out and said anti-Asian violence is anti-American, that is important because it stakes out the official position of the United States government, because it's not going to solve it. Okay. But shit like that's important. I mean, just like, did the signing of the Civil Rights Bill solve racism? No.
Not. Right.
But it
did something.
It did something, and it's important because it's the official, when they decide to enforce it, the official stance of the U.S. government is no discrimination based on race, ethnicity, yada yada.
But here's the thing: the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office still can't place it as racism. Oh, we'll investigate it.
Yeah.
Okay. They had the spokesperson who months before had been selling, anti-Asian fucking shirt that said COVID-19.
He was also a Blackwater contractor in Iraq.
Oh, bingo. So, maybe at the government level they can do it, but at the state and regional level, they're still going to be the good old redneck boys that they'll always be, and they'll protect their own. And the thing is, if there's no, like I said, with Black Lives Matter, I'm like, great for Black Lives Matter. I'm glad they got people to recognize it, and more people came out, and now more people are more people of color in office, and people are recognizing the
white solidarity with them.
Right,
You
the
know,
white
a hell of a
solidarity
lot
with
more
them,
white solidarity.
right? Like I have more white solidarity. Hopefully, change. And like people say, what people are trying to say is like, don't ride BLM's coattails. Anti-Asian, like our version of BLM, which is ALM, basically should follow, should be its own entity unto itself.
Yeah,
Now,
I agree.
I partially agree. Like, but I feel like we need to use whatever wedges we possibly can to drive the equality that we need. You know
And
what I mean? Like, so
right.
if there is benefit to finding, like, again, look, you're talking to a socialist over here. So like, I'm all about, like, again, that solidarity across class lines, across race lines, across gender lines, like all of that. So any way that you can get more people collectivized together, you're going to, even for right now, if it's just social, that we change the way we talk about things, you know what I mean? The way that people think about things. And it's not law yet, maybe, you know what I mean? But in the end, that's what you, like, I don't know, the more people moving as one, the more power you got.
Yeah. Well, then you need a JLM, right? Jewish Lives Matter. You need all these people to come out of the work.
But Jewish Lives Matter aren't under threat.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like,
really not?
Not, I mean, not in America, not in a serious way.
The fucking guy, the Navy contractor who had top level secret clearance, basically, his employers knew he was a white supremacist. He wore a Hitler stash at work. He posted.
How many Jews has he killed?
How many Jews? It's not how many Jews has he killed yet. As the point, as like he was making threatening statements. He was basically going up to people of who he knew were either Jewish or people of color and saying very, very subtle and veiled threats.
Here's what I'm going to say. Here's what I'm going to say.
All right, go ahead.
The Jews are always at fault for all of these problems. Yes, we are the boogeyman that is blamed behind everything. But Jews. Yeah. I'm sorry, Jews are the reason. It always comes back to we are the cause for the ill in the white society. Almost always. Like if there's too many Puerto Ricans, it's because the Jews changed the fucking immigration laws or whatever.
And black people and BLM and all that. You guys are responsible for that too?
Shit, how did we do that? I don't know. There's that school, like all of those Jewish Germans that we brought over to that school in Manhattan and changed the thought and started changing. Like, again, I'm not saying it's reality, but I'm saying it's the way it's perceived. Is that it was Jewish thought and Jewish ideas that are perverting the good thing that we had in this white society and allowing for black freedom, allowing for women to think they can do more, allowing that more immigration to change the demographics.
People don't look at Jews as equal, even though
we're not white.
It depends on the white person, but I can tell you, like, growing up, so the thing about Atlanta's got, this is just my childhood, Atlanta's got like a pretty big Jewish population. Like my best friend in middle school was Jewish. Mm-hmm. But you will definitely, like, if you listen to some evangelical and Pentecostal preachers, if you listen to some of the bigger right-wing, mega church preachers, they will blame Jews for shit. Christ killers, blood libel, you'll hear that.
Right. Shit. So no denial that, like, I'm pretty sure that it's always in the end the Jews' fault, but day-to-day living in America, for now, there's a hell of a lot of people in front of us, that are in trouble. You know what I mean? Like in much more immediate danger than the Jews.
We got about 10 minutes. We have about 10 minutes left on this Zoom call before we have to start another one. So let's try and do a little recap in the 10 minutes, and I'll try and create another meeting and I'll send it out.
Well, again. The recap is that I know, Craig, that you orchestrated this Asian thing coming up right now, so we wouldn't call you names as much.
No, I think this is his way of convincing New York State to let him get a concealed carry permit. It's all about the gun.
Do you know how hard it is to get a concealed carry permit in New York City?
Thank God. Seriously, the fact that we live in a place that's got such stringent gun laws is something we should be fucking grateful for.
People for getting shot. People for getting.
Yeah, but if you look at the number of homicides per capita in New York, we are incredibly safe. Like my brother can tell you stories about being an assistant DA in New Orleans and the levels of violence they had there.
Dude, I remember this is like maybe early aughts, like early 2000s, and my wife got attacked on a train.
Oh, I think you told me about this. Yeah.
Yeah, and long story short, we're in the Coney Island Police Department, and she's going to look through mugshots. And so we're left alone in this room for a little while, while they get the books together. And we're looking at file cabinets of murder cases are in this file cabinets. Now we can't open them. Clearly they're locked. You know what I mean? But it was astounding. Like it went back to like the 80s and through the 90s, and just how many, like you would see, like for the year 1992 would have like this many file cabinets. And then the year we were at, like, it was like, maybe one drawer actually had 2 years in it. New York is astoundingly nonviolent, contrary to what popular opinion may be.
When it involves guns.
I think with violence in general. I think
crime in general per capita. When you consider
now sexual attacks, that's a different story. We still don't do so great with that. But I don't know about compared to other people, other states or cities, but that number hasn't declined as much as the other types of violence. But New York is I would say we may have picked up a bit during this quarantine. But in general, New York is a fairly safe place. Knock on wood.
Because people are not allowed to conceal carry, right?
Well,
possibly.
Yeah, look, if you look at states with strict gun laws, lower levels of murder, lower levels of violence, lower levels of spousal murder, because women are at most in danger in a house with a gun.
Well, yeah, guns are the most final type of violence that we have access to. You know what I mean? Like, so if I want to beat if I want to hurt someone with my fists, I got to do a lot of work to get, whereas with a gun or even a knife, it's pretty hard to kill someone that easily with a knife. You know what I mean? With a gun.
All right. So there's an article from WABC, basically in 2020, that gun shootings have increased 112% in New York City alone, right? And a lot of the reason being is these are illegal guns that are coming up through straw buyers. I forgot what they call it. It's the I-95 pipeline, basically.
It's like the Iron Highway or something?
Yeah, the Iron Highway comes, from Georgia or Mississippi, wherever it is. And like, I personally know guys, that did this. They sent guys down as straw buyers, and they would buy, 22 for like $50 in Louisiana, and they would come back up here and they would literally sell for 10 times the amount, right? Because that's how much people were willing to pay for guns. And because gun laws are so strict now, right? Has the Iron Pipeline closed down? I don't know, but people are still getting their guns. They're still getting the guns. And the thing is, the criminals are getting their guns. But guys like me, I'm not allowed to carry. I'm not saying I want to carry a gun with me all the time, but I would like to have it a little bit easier if I can get a handgun, that I can have a shotgun. I don't really qualify for carry permits because I'm not a business owner. I don't deal with $50,000 in cash. I don't have a business in a shitty neighborhood. I don't have a restraining order out on somebody, or my life has not been threatened in any which way yet, right? Which allows me to have a carry permit. And then
I thought I threatened your life yesterday.
Yeah, but it's so easy with you. I would just have to throw a potato at you and you would drop dead.
Here's my thing. Is like, I'm not like look, I got a kid in the house and I got a wife that doesn't want a gun around. If it was up to me, I would want a weapon in my house, but I do not want to have a weapon as I walk around the streets, and I don't want other people to either. I want a weapon here because this is my castle. I like that type of law where I'm allowed to protect my castle. But I don't know. In a city like this, like, there's a lot of weird ass fucking people out there, and I'm one of them. There's over the years, like I'm chill now comparatively, but like, I don't know, like if a weapon was just right here, and some asshole infuriates you to no end, like, and people get furious, you know what I mean, and then regret the action that they took later. But if you don't have a gun on your hip, okay, you don't have something quite so horrible to regret. You know what I mean? Like, whereas if you had it right there. I don't like full-on gun control because someday I want the revolution to happen, and I don't want the other side to have all the guns.
Well, Craig, that's my whole point.
Craig, the other argument, what you're saying is that rather than say, hey, people can go get straw buyers in South Carolina or North Carolina, and bring guns up. It's like, why do we have real national gun control where if you do straw buyer, you end up in fucking jail?
They do that now. They do that, but remember, you can thank the NRA. You can thank the conservative. You can thank the conservative side of government saying that you're infringing on my Second Amendment rights. Look, I'm a Second Amendment. I mean, yes. Do I want a 50 caliber mod sitting in my house? If I could afford it, sure, why not? I know that would never be able to afford it, but knowing that I can get it, and that's what a lot of these guys argue. Like they just want to be able to get what they want. They're not necessarily going to buy it. It's like you're restricting me the type of car that I want to buy. I mean, I can't buy a Lamborghini because it'll outrun every cop interceptor out there in the street. But I'm still allowed to have a Lamborghini.
Yeah, but you also can't drive also can't do 200 down the West Side Highway without getting in trouble. Like the car gun thing doesn't work because we restrict cars.
So here's the thing that a lot of these guys don't understand. The government wants you to register. If you buy a can of basically what's called a suppressor, right? You have to pay a $200 ATF fee for 2 years, and you have to register. But a lot of these guys say, well, why would you want to do that? But I look at these guys like, why wouldn't you want to do that? You register your car, right? You have to renew your license every 2 years. What's the big deal? And you're paying $200. I mean, it's a suppressor.
If you talk to a libertarian, they're not going to like that either.
So let's circle around for a second back to like Boys Don't Cry. And this is one of my pet peeves.
Go ahead.
And this is one of my problems with a lot of action movies, a lot of superhero movies. And even though I don't believe that there's any link between video games and violence, I think this is the one criticism you make, is one of my problems with US culture is that in a lot of our media, violence is shown as the answer. So what's that terrible Taken, the Liam, those terrible Liam Neeson movies? It's like the entire, he tortures people, he shoots people,
Okay.
One of the problems of society is we don't show ways out of conflict other than violence. How do superheroes resolve conflicts?
Yeah, by beating it up. Yeah, it is an interesting thing. Like,
I think that's the world, dude. Name a culture out there that doesn't.
Yeah, but we can change U.S. culture. I can't change culture across the world. It's like we can change.
What would you want to change it to? What would you?
Right, like that's like, all right. So that's the problem in my eyes. Is like, unfortunately, from the way that we look at it now, the violent solutions are much more enjoyable to watch. I don't know, I don't know, like think of an action movie and try to resolve it in some other way. I know. Is that an enjoyable movie? I don't know.
I'll admit this right now. I don't have an answer, but it's something that sticks in my head.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
And as a writer, it's something like I try to avoid. It's like the solution's got to be something to violence. No, I agree with you. Like Die Hard, fantastic movie. But the thing about Die Hard is you're not going to take Die Hard seriously. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like Die Hard's not meant, but it's just
24, Jack Bauer, right?
What?
24 with Jack Bauer.
Exactly.
Right? Or Tom Clancy's, the new Tom Clancy series on Amazon, right?
I know. I saw the trailer for that.
Jack Ryan.
I was like,
right?
What a steaming pile of shit.
Well,
that is not. But like the entire thing is set up so that violence is the only solution. But that feeds into like all of like,
that's why I like Stargate.
But that feeds into like, people who have to wear their tactical gear, who want their mil spec boards. Like there is a fantasy of solutions involved in that, and none of those are solutions. It's someone who is trying to address a problem that first of all doesn't exist. Second of all they're going to do is make things worse.
Okay, so you guys always goofed on me with my tactical gear.
Why do you think I said that?
My plate carrier, I got my pack, the whole 9 yards. And the Capitol riot is a perfect example of like, you wore your tack gear. I guess it didn't solve shit, but their major complaint is like, we didn't do anything wrong. We were just patriots trying to like take back the country from the tyranny of the Democrats and all that other shit. And like, that's not how it works. The reason why I got the tack gear in the first place was so you and I could be on equal levels. When you start throwing shit my way, I could throw it straight back at you with equal amount of force. In other words, I'm telling you, if you came to play, I came to win. So
listen,
right.
when you beat that bully's ass when you were in 8th grade,
Yeah.
I think that was the right solution to that problem.
But
I
he didn't
don't
stop.
think that, scales well to societal level.
Right.
No,
See,
it
like,
doesn't. But
here's
And you're
my
looking,
thing
what?
is
Yeah.
like, so whether the left or the right has more guns, I think matters not. I think it's which side the state's power sides with. You know what I mean? Like that's going to be the tip. Like, so if Trump was able to do, like, if January 6th became what the Trump followers wanted it to be, they would then have the state power. And no matter how many guns we had on our side, it wouldn't matter because
No.
we can't combat the state. And
If
so, yeah, that's like, I think in order for either side to win, the state has to move in that direction.
I agree. And that's why I say to you, Craig, it's like you can have your plate carrier and you can have your ceramic plates and you can have your M4 and you can have all this shit. It's not going to matter when someone puts a JDAM through your ceiling from 20,000 feet.
Right.
understandable, but they had
Blown by a drone.
But
Yeah.
you know, there's still the current problem of there are still people in the military, like they're squashing the numbers down. Like every time they make an announcement, well, we only have like, you know, there's only like 4 or 5 guys out of like 1,000 that were like that. I think that number is a little bit larger. I think it's more than 4 or 5 guys out of every 1,000. I think from my experience, when I talk to other guys who get out of the military and I ask them like, you know, what was the basic consensus? Like, you know, there was a lot of ribbing going on, like how we always goof on each other, non-political correctness. And there's a lot of name calling, you know, and all that other shit. But for the most part, there is a camaraderie. But they have told me that there are guys out there that are dead. The reason why they join the military is because they can get the experience and then they get back out and then they train other guys. They train their guys. That is the part that, and other guys that stay in the military, they rise up the rank, right? And they're able to have more influence. I think what the idiots in the Capitol were expecting was they were expecting that that everybody in the military is like, hey, look at these guys, let's get on their side. They're doing the right thing. They're defending Constitution, all that other shit. And all of a sudden, when the army showed up and said, holy shit, they're dead serious against us, you know, I think that's when they did their 180 and all the militias went on the ground because they knew they could not stand up against the superior force. In other words,
right.
You know,
I think the thing is like we have
the gravy seals.
We have the protection of the fact that the state still has a lot of attachment to all kinds of agencies, and the commander in chief is someone we elect. So I think there's a limit to how, like, I mean, unless you're afraid that there's going to be enough nutbags in there that they're actually going to be able to take control of the military and then do a coup in that sense, then
okay.
I mean, yes, this is a problem we're going to deal with, is weeding these people out. But I mean,
going back to your state level, influence, you have Marjorie Taylor Greene, you have Lauren Boebert, you have what the fuck is that other idiot in the wheelchair? Hawthorne.
Madison Hawthorne.
Nathan, yeah, whatever the fuck his name is, right? You have guys who are already in the House. You definitely have, who's that? Roy Rogers from fucking Wisconsin, who basically
makes
said,
burgers.
Yeah.
I'm not worried. I wasn't worried about those guys.
He's up for re-election in 2020.
Right. If it was Antifa or BLM, then I would have been worried. And like he's, like
Ron Johnson.
Yeah, you already have jerk-offs in said state,
sure.
and their whole game plan now is to suppress voting, where it favors their constituency and basically locks ours.
Well, that's been the South's plan for a long time.
No, but this is now they're really moving in on it because they all of a sudden they realize, holy shit, the coup didn't work, keeping Trump in office didn't work, right? And they realized we lost seats in the Senate. We may have picked up some gains in the House, but who knows what's going to happen in the next 4 years. Like just recently in Louisiana, they had a runoff. Like basically, I think it was 2 congressional seats that were open. The Republican won one, and she won by a lot. I mean, she won like 70% or something like that.
She won the safe Republican seat, and the Democrat won the safe Democratic seat.
No, the 2 Democrats are still fighting it out for the other.
Are they
seat.
still?
Yeah, they're still fighting. But it's 2 Democrats against each other. It's not, it's not a Republican or a Democrat.
It's a safe Democratic seat. Yeah.
Yeah, but the other one, if you wanted to see that change, if people were to get fed up with it, I think you should see more people starting to realize, the entire Republican agenda was basically bullshit. It was one big lie.
Well, that's why there's such a push to get rid of the filibuster, because they want to, Democrats in general want to pass a new Voting Rights Act, which is why there's so much of a push to get rid of the filibuster, because that's the only way it's going to happen.
Right.
And I hope when that happens, Ted Cruz cries.
I don't know. The fact that guy still is not arrested, the fact that, who's that other jerk off that was with him? What the hell is his name? Josh Hawley?
Josh Hawley, who, by the way, is a literal fucking Nazi.
Surprise, surprise. The fact that these guys are not being
JQ and everything.
What?
He throws out the JQ, like that's like Jewish question, like Jews behind everything. He's
probably
on the record.
He's too smart to say that publicly.
Marjorie Taylor Greene with Jewish lasers from space. Come on, bro.
Oh yeah.
And and she gave away the fucking secret about the Jewish lasers, man. She's in trouble.
Yeah.
The fact that these people,
I've been hearing a lot of talk, like it's like, all right.
But the fact that these people are in office and they're not going to leave anytime soon because the constituency is going to keep them there. Like, seriously,
we don't know that they're not going to leave anytime soon. That's the thing. We don't know that for sure. Like, Marjorie Taylor Greene already has a challenger, and we're fucking a year and we're almost 2 years out from the election, so she's already got a challenger.
I mean, that's my thing, is like, I've mentioned this to you guys before, like I feel like there's a bit of a schism in their party right now, and we don't know exactly where the chips are going to fall. There's the establishment Republican Party, which is who still holds the power.
You mean like
McConnell and them and all the money behind all those guys, versus the deplorables, for lack of a better word, like the voters that can help them keep those seats. We don't know exactly how much power those voters will have until we see kind of how it all plays out the next time we vote. I think we don't know if they're going to be able to pull it all back together. The hope is that they can't, and that they fight themselves enough that the Democrats can hold control long enough for us to do some good shit.
Well, we're gonna get a test run this year for the elections in Virginia, because Virginia has off-year elections. So if the Democrats are able to hold on to the trifecta in Virginia, that'll be a good sign for us.
Gotcha.
If they don't, but we ain't going there. But if they hold on to the trifecta, because it'll be the first election, obviously post-Trump, with this new openly fascist Republican Party.
Right.
Whereas before they tried to hide it a little bit.
I mean, that should be a warning. It's openly fascist. I mean, like, how much more convincing do you want? Like, these people, you're never going to convince people.
I'm just glad that liberals are finally on board with calling out fascism, because that's something that I think that socialists have been bitching about for a long time, is just using that word when it's important, not just as like a label, but as like, no, let's look at the structures that they're trying to build and call them what they are.
I think fascists have been killing people, dude. I mean, literally murdering people. Literally. Well,
that's not the definition of fascism, but yeah, killing people is bad.
Yeah. And killing people is definitely on brand for fascists. Yeah.
So let's go back. Let's look at the news. Like, how many have there been any deaths associated with left-wing protests, or BLM protests, or basically?
I think it's arguable that there may have been a couple, but it's not really the brand.
Right.
Yeah, there is no left version of the Proud Boys.
Right.
Which
is, what do they call it? Because every time I have an argument with these guys, and they're like, well, what about the left-wing extremists? Like, what fucking left-wing?
Well, I mean, just to steel man their side of the argument, that's Antifa. You know what I mean? Like, Antifa does react violently, and they do act with violence. So, but it is arguably defensive.
The fascists.
Right. It is arguably defensive, and it's not as mortal.
The fascist.
And Antifa doesn't meet and group together specifically the purpose going to look to beat people up like the Proud Boys do.
Right.
The Proud Boys go hunting.
I would say there's the ideological difference is what creates the different outcome.
But I would also say with that, the fact that the Proud Boys are attached to power because they're in with Republicans, whereas Antifa, no Democratic candidate is going to be like, yeah, I'm pro Antifa.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But you know, the Proud Boys were at the attempted coup.
Stand back and stand by.
You know, they were doing security for Roger Stone. So the Proud Boys aren't, like Eric was saying earlier, and the Proud Boys are attached to state power. Even if it's not, you know, super firm, they are still attached to state power. There's there's no left-wing group. You know?
Don't forget Oath Keepers and the Sweep Centers and the Minutemen and whatever other idiot militias that are out there. I mean, like, they're already saying like that invasion for the Michigan state capitol was a dry run.
Yeah,
it was basically a dry run for this one. So to me, this goes years back before anything. They already had a plan 2 years in advance, at least in my eyes, that they were going to do something like this.
Well, but I mean, if you want to go back, like, you know, really historically in our country, there are multiple times where groups of white people have destroyed black towns, black neighborhoods.
The Tulsa Massacre.
But but there's more than just the Tulsa. I mean, I'm glad people know about the Tulsa Massacre, but there's more than just the Tulsa Massacre.
Wasn't there one in Mississippi too, where they
there's more than one? So, but like you know, what we would consider the fascist elements in our country, the violent fascist elements, like, they've had free reign before. You know, I'm not trying to underplay what's going on now, but like, you know, there is historical continuum.
Right.
You know, and the difference now, one of the differences now being that, you know, the official position of the United States government is that's bad.
Right.
Whereas before, the official position of the United States government was,
right.
But how are you going to stem the problem of fascism right now?
I think that
keep them out of power. That's all we got.
Yeah, I think that we are going to stem by fascism by doing things like passing a new Voter Rights Act, by continuing to push the Democratic Party to the left, or let's even take that out of it. Continue to push the Democratic Party to pass legislation that actually makes people's lives better, and not get caught in some of the, like, you know, the technocratic shit that they can get caught into, where we're going to give you a 6% tax deduction. It's like, no, put money in people's fucking bank accounts. Don't give me a 3% tax. But that's how
the message can't be so muddy. It's got to be like easily understood as, oh, these guys are helping me.
Yeah, think FDR. That's why Jen Psky's been saying money in people's pockets, shots in people's arms. Like, she's
right. And then you have guys in Texas and Florida. Oh, you're infringing my rights with the mask mandate, these COVID restrictions, and, you know, all this other shit. The government's not doing anything.
I mean, we can't help that. We can't help the way they think right now.
But
all we can do is what we think is going to cause the best outcomes for people. That's the best we can do. We can't change the way they think.
Yeah, and for some of these people, we're simply going to have to keep the pressure on and keep fighting on our end until they either lose interest or until they're in an old folks home. You know what I'm saying?
Or I want accountability. You put these guys, you make them pay like the harshest penalty.
Well, look, I firmly hope that everyone that the DOJ has indicted for January 6th ends up in federal prison. So people are going to pay prices. But some middle-aged white dude somewhere who refuses to wear a mask because the most important thing to him is owning the libs, we're just going to have to make sure that he doesn't get anyone to carry out his agenda until he's 95 years old and can't remember his name.
Well, then you have to introduce something to stop the recruitment. Again, going back to our insult situation, you're going to have to find a way to blunt the recruitment of people like the incels.
Well, right. I mean, but if they're not breaking the law recruiting, then again, I want a free society. And so there's only so much we can do, but we can make their offer seem less attractive.
Yes,
because what we're offering is better.
Yes, exactly.
That's all. That's, in my opinion, that's all we can do.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been about an hour.
Livable minimum wage, all universal health care, all that shit.
Yeah, all that jazz.
You know.
All right. Well, it's been about an hour. I think we have
federal law that says Craig is never allowed to own a weapon ever. I'm all for that.
I think everyone can get on board with that.
Are you that scared? Robert may have joked about it. I would go on a tear, like when our mutual friend who grew up in Midwood and basically, you know, had issue with us was going to come back and go all postal on us. I wouldn't do that Because
No, because you're a nice guy.
I'm not that crazy. I'm not a nice
Right.
guy.
Eric,
I'm
what
a
do you
nice
think
guy.
about a tax on people who own too many Star Wars t-shirts?
Oh, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
That's not a bad idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have 3. I think I'm just under the taxation line.
I have 0.
All right, boys. It's been a good week. It's a good conversation.
Yep.
I will save this out, and maybe we can start putting this up on the YouTube channel.
So yeah, so are you going to try and like edit it?
Yeah, I'm gonna try and edit.
So why don't you edit it? Why don't you, if you can, like, I think you can create a YouTube channel and mark it as private.
Yeah, and then I'll throw it up there and show you guys, and then
Yeah, so we can see it. Yeah.
And we'll start. All right, good. All right, good
All right.
conversation. Thank you very much.
All right, good to talk to you guys.
All right, have a good day. Thank you for
Later.
listening to the Craig's Terrible Idea podcast, and we'll see you guys next week
For our next terrible idea.
for our next terrible idea. All right,
All right.
ta-ta.
Later, guys.